G'day everybody, it's Will from Never Odd or Even here, and I'm joined today by Rev Wendy Snook, who is the minister at St Andrew's Berwick Uniting Church. She's a Pokemon player just like I am. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Pokemon, you'll know what we're talking about, but for those who aren't, we're going to give you a bit of a rundown now on Pokemon and another augmented reality game called Ingress. Welcome, Wendy. Tell us a little bit about these augmented reality games.
Yeah, it was great to catch up with you at Synod, Will. I started off playing because of my family in Ingress, the Niantic game, which was the precursor to Pokemon.
So there are really three distinct stories here too, in the three different augmented realities that are taking the time. You use your phone to actually to play each of the games. Yeah. And so the Ingress story is about an alien invasion, is that right?
Yeah, look, the alien invasion story is where the original SF sort of thing comes from. So Enlightened are supposed to be the aliens, and the Greens and Resistance are the Blues, the Frogs and the Smurfs. But you don't have to buy into the mythology to actually be part of the strategic game. Yep. The game really is about controlling GPS-defined spaces. Yep. And between two teams worldwide. And the difference is with Pokemon, it's very individualistic. And it's because my family, my cousin, my sister, they're my mother, and it was my mother who got me into Ingress. And for those of you who don't know, my mother's in-game name is Granny Hoon, and she's about 81. So she's our sort of secret sleuther, because most gamers don't see an elderly lady with grey hair sneaking up on them with a phone as their opposition in some raid or some situation. Wow. So anyway, all of us mostly do play Ingress, but we also play Pokemon and Wizards now, so I'm familiar with all three.
So this is really challenging some stereotypes here, because a lot of people might think that games like this, these augmented reality games, would be something that maybe, Gen X or millennials are playing. But really there's a fairly large retired market as well, from what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. When the retirees realise, they could talk to their grandkids and go out raiding together. Yep. So it's social inclusion and family fun. In my case, the family gagging up on everybody else. Yep. We jokingly say that my portal quickly becomes a level 8 portal, which is like the top power you can get whenever I have a Christmas party and the whole family
family comes together. And so you'll
gather. And my family goes from, my mother is 80-something down to my nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews who are like 12 or whatever else, all playing the game together. And it's not an age-based competency. You can actually be part of it and plan things. It's really your own skill base, what your way you like to think. And so in my husband's case, he says it keeps his brain active. Yep. He's right into Pokemon as well, and now Wizards. And he's the one who advises me, because I don't have time to read it all. And
it's not just the brain as well. So in order to play this game, you have to go outside. You've got to walk from one place to another. So there's mental stimulation benefits as well as physical exercise benefits.
Yeah, that's one of the things that my mother sold me on, because I sort of thought, I'm not sure. I hadn't done much of this before Ingress. And she said, well, you need to walk. You need to do some exercise. I really don't like just walking for no purpose. Yep. It's just like a waste of time. And you can't just shut your eyes because you get bowled over by traffic or something. So to actually have a purpose for walking from this place to that place, or in my case, Main Street of Berwick is full of portals, so you can walk up and down and keep hacking the entire time, or in Pogo's case, collecting Pokemon. And now Wizards, I can collect energy, and there's a fortress on the main road, so that's great. So it gives me, if I'm having a day off like today, I can actually go sit down in my main street, play, and I end up talking to people, like just down at the shops. Yep. In the middle, because in Berwick, the main street's very wide. It used to be oxen traffic. It's 6 chains wide in the old language, because ox carts had to do U-turns, bringing wood from here down to Melbourne to build the roads and the docklands and all of that years ago. So the roads are really wide. So they've got these parks down the middle of the highway, and you can sit in the park and enjoy the sunshine and the trees and hack away, collect Pokemon, talk to the neighbours while you're out. Yeah, so it's a whole side to it out of your house.
Yep.
If you can play in your house, but it's easier if you go out as well.
Go out. Yep.
That's true. What blew me away when I started, I was only like 4 months in or something, just still getting my toes into the water, when we had a world anomaly, which is like a war, that they picked 6 cities around the world every 3 months or so, and Melbourne happened to be one of the 6. And I volunteered. It was a Saturday. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And you put your name down and you got put into a team, whether you're a walker, bike rider, car user, indeed, person who flies like planes are also in our teams.
Yep.
And my team of 12 people, we all met with literally over 1,000 people, came into Melbourne to a point to register at the start of the day, both Res and Enlightened, and then we went out to go into battle. And my particular 12, we all had microphones and headsets. We had our local team leaders, and then we had our operator who was guiding our 12 people, and our operator was a guy in the city of Victoria in Vancouver Island, off the city of Vancouver in Canada.
Wow.
And he could guide us and say, okay, go 20 metres down the road and turn left and then hit that portal named such and such, Yep. And then our backup team, because once we attacked it physically and then we're busy GPS, controlling it with our game, he had a backup team for my 12 were in Germany.
Wow.
And so there was a heap of people, up to like 30 or more, in a particular place, room, town, whatever, in Germany that were my team's backup.
Yep.
And he'd go, hold it. Okay, you can move now. The German team's got it. And we'd move off to do the next strategic activity.
Yep.
Well, our organisation, my mother's team, for example, and my sisters, they were out near Flagstaff Gardens. I was over near the theatres and Russell Street and stuff, down at Fed Square. They were over near Flagstaff. Their operator was in the US, and their backup team was in Japan.
Wow.
And then since then, I've been in backup teams for overseas competitions. And so I might be like Canberra, for example. It was really fun when they had one. It gives you a sense of connection, like worldwide.
Yeah.
Like, there are people in Germany who are my friends, because I don't know them necessarily as an individual, but I know they're part of my team.
Yep. And you have a mission. You have a mission together. You've got something, a common purpose that actually brings you into a sense of community.
Yeah, that's right. So I found that sense of community and that sense of power as a group worldwide. If you sort of reflect on that in politics, social world, culture, and all the rest, it's a very powerful idea. And as you actually enact that, and for me, of course, in faith and the life of the church is similarly worldwide.
So speaking of faith, tell me about the time, you told me a story about the time where during you were playing Pokemon, you met God. Is that right?
Yes, that was a bit of an interesting story, that one. It was like just before last Christmas. As I said, I'm in a team, and when you've got large teams in Pokemon, raid teams, people come in very quickly, and it's really hard for the team leader to know everybody. They don't. If you're talking about hundreds of people. So a lot of people join the team, and a whole bunch of new people join the team. I didn't know that because I'm just a member of that team. I'm not the leader of that team, and I just play occasionally and help out people. Like they'll say, "Oh, anyone free at 4:00? My son needs a Absol or something," and I'll go down and help them capture that from a particular egg, hatching. Because our team is fairly what I call G-rated. It's a very family type of group. We've got people, the woman who runs it is a mum with kids.
Yep.
We've got grannies. We're not as many grannies in her team, but a lot of 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and then 12-year-olds, in Pokemon, fairly G-rated. Well, this bunch that came in, I didn't know anyway, I don't know how much Mel knew, came from another team that were overlapping ours in the way these people were behaving, and they brought a different culture with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like they were all young males, all late teens, early 20s, mid-20s. And they started talking to each other like there were only them even though the comms have got 280 people,
Yep.
They were talking like no one else could hear them.
Yep. And you use Discord for comms, is that right?
No, they were using Messenger on this particular group.
Yep.
And like the 15 or so people were talking like there's only the 15 of them rather than 280 people reading. And the way they talked was, bad language. It was fairly derogatory in some of the stuff they were saying. Not family, not G-rated, let's put it that way. And what started to get me was somebody rather whom I did not know at the time, they decided to call God.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this, hey, God, what shall we do? And, God said, and da-da-da. And it's this whole thing about God kept going through. And at first I didn't know what was going on. And then I twigged it was somebody that changed their name to God. And in Niantic's rules, by the way, in all those games we're talking about, you have to be careful not to use words that are derogatory or defamatory or seen to be sacred, to other people, out of respect, no matter what religion or, it's like calling someone President Trump or something and you're in America, probably offend somebody rather. And so, I didn't say anything for a couple of weeks. I thought, it's some silly behaviour, they'll get over it. Mel will say something, the leader. But nothing happened. They kept going and going. And it was leading right up to Christmas, and I was doing all this work on putting together Christmas carols, putting together Christmas Eve, pageants and services and old people's homes and, all the things that we do as ministers right before Christmas. It's a really holy and special and fun and exciting, all of those things to do our work at that time of year. Hard work too. And it really started to gripe on me, on my spirit, I think, that someone was taking the name of God in vain and saying things, using that name or to that name, that were quite disrespectful, quite offensive, particularly to women. And so I thought, right, well, I've put up with it for about 3 weeks here. I've really had it up to here. I need to say something. The leader's obviously not said anything, and so I just put into the comm something like, look, would you mind please changing your name from God to something else, because it's against Niantic's code of conduct, in naming, to use a name that's could be seen as offensive to other people.
Yep.
And wow, did they go to town? This little group of people, they got right stuck into me. They were personally attacking me. They said, "Oh, Wendy, that's a made-up name." Blah blah blah. They went right off. Should I then he be called Allah or Buddha or something? I'm going, no, that's equally offensive. I don't want him called any of those names.
Yep.
He probably has a name. And the person themselves said, oh, yeah, actually, that's not my normal game name. It's a nickname that these guys call me. And I went, well, it's still, if they're using it, it's still not appropriate in a really large group like this. Like, we're talking 280 people, as I said, and it's 10 people that are being horrible.
Can really change it for the whole group, I guess.
They were changing it for the whole, what I call G-rated group, family people. And other people were dropping out. I didn't realise that people were dropping out of the team because of it. Anyway, I just thought, right, this is right before Christmas. I'm really busy. I don't need to deal with this rubbish. I'm out of here. I've got my own Ingress team to look after. It's not my problem. So I said to the team leader of the Pogo team, look, I'm out for the moment. I might come back later, but I'm not going to participate if the language and the attitudes are as poor as what's going on in this group. And she was understood. Anyway, a couple of sequels to that story. One was that about a month later, I was down at another church, in fact, out in the car park, and a car pulls up beside me, and it was a res player who I could see on the intel who he was, and we started talking. I'd not met him before, and then he, after like 3 minutes into the conversation about Ingress, he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm God in Pogo."
Wow. So the same person who had been...
the same person, actually. He sought me out.
Wow.
Knowing my intel name, to find where I was to come and talk to me. And I just went, "Oh, okay." And so he said, "Oh, I have to apologise for what happened." And I sort of looked, and he said, "Oh, well, these guys," and this is where I say I quote him, he said, "Oh, we slag off at each other and take the piss and,
Yep.
what do you call it? Behave like assholes."
Yep.
He had words like that to describe his little group of people. And he said, "And we do that all the time in my group, in my group. And we just don't think anything about it." That because you're not in my normal group, like you're new through Messenger, so I didn't have your contacts and stuff, and I wasn't really thinking it was a big deal, actually. I just thought, I'd mentioned that it's not Niantic policy, and you clearly have another name, so just flip back to it. And he said, "Oh, well, the reason they call me that is because I'm the team leader of a different group, and they think I'm the Pokemon God. Mm-hmm. I'm the Pokemon God. I know so much about it. I'm the Pokemon God." And so they contracted that from Pokemon God to God.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, yeah, but that didn't go on the comms."
Yeah.
You just went straight into calling yourself God and all these people calling themselves God, and you're speaking in the name of God, which was not an appropriate thing to do in public forum. It's not just your 10 people. It's a whole group of people you're affecting. And indeed hurting by your attitudes to someone like me, of a person of faith.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was quite apologetic personally. He said he had words to those that were abusive to me, because I said some of the responses were quite pointed and nasty to me personally.
Yeah.
Which I won't go into. But he said he had words with those people responsible. They went over the top. They shouldn't have done it. Da, 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 da. And I said, "Okay, I accept the apology, but I still think that it was the wrong thing to do, and I don't want to see it happen, because in Ingress world, as I said, I'm a team leader in Ingress world, so he's joined Ingress. He needs to fit in with the ways of Ingress. What he does in his own Pogo team is a different deal, but it's not what should happen in Ingress." And so he took that on board and said, yeah, I get that.
And I think that's one of the striking things is that really what's happened here is you've had a meeting of two different cultures come together, and the culture in one group was quite different to the culture in another.
It was.
And what happens often when we're a little disembodied with our phones when we're playing these games, we actually don't necessarily see the people who are also playing the games, and we might behave in ways that we actually might not do in real life. But there's a sense in which these guys, they really need to understand that that's the case. And I guess for my listeners out there as too, is actually don't fall into the trap of actually thinking that it's just you interacting with a machine, but remember that there are actually real people out there who are playing these games. And that those people have a right to be respected and cared for and not have their experience spoiled.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between one-on-one, like you and the computer type games. You can carry on all you like a 2-bob watch. If you're shooting something on a screen and it's just you and the screen, a computer, a mindless computer that you're engaging with. But in these real-world GPS-based games, you're actually dealing with real people. Not just a computer. The computer is just a mechanism behind actual helping people engage with one another. As I said, Ingress is a totally community-based game. You can play it by yourself, but it's very difficult.
Yep, and you can only really get to
level.
you can only really get to a certain point with all three of these games if you're actually just doing it alone.
Yeah.
You get to a point where in order to capture something bigger, you need to have a group of friends with you, or to do something to get into the top half of the game.
Yeah. To get to level 40 and have all the legendaries or something in Pogo, you really need to work in raid teams to take them down. Because I've been in raid teams where we've had 28 people trying to take down a particular legendary, powerful monster. And, you've needed that many people with all the different range of skills and strengths of Pokemon that people have got to do it. At the moment, I'm still trying to figure out the community aspects of Wizards, I have to say. I mean, so far it's been very individualistic, in spells, collecting stuff.
Now, Wizards is the Harry Potter version of these augmented reality games, running very similar to Pokemon Go in its format, and it's only really been released a couple of months now.
I put off learning about Wizards because I was busy, and my church secretary is in her 30s, says, I have to teach you Wizards, Wizards. So she's taking me out next Monday to learn about how to fight as a team in a fortress.
Yep.
And she says, which I'm trying to work it out how, that we double or triple our scores if we play together.
Okay, so the incentives are already starting to come in, yeah.
So there's something to it, but I'm still figuring it out.
Well, look, we could talk here for hours, I'm sure, but I think I'll probably need to bring this particular segment to an end. But there you go. For the viewers at home, there's the opportunity to fight for control of the world.
Mania's joined here.
to capture little pets, or to be engaged in the world of Harry Potter overlapped with our own real world. And I guess these augmented reality games have that opportunity to develop community, but they have that positive aspect in that community can be worldwide and give a sense of purpose, and the negative aspect that the cultures of those communities can sometimes clash with one another. And so there's a lot of thinking as we step into this new place about how we behave and how we conduct ourselves in this new world that's opening up in front of us.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm keen for there to be a conversation around this. So those people who have watched, if you'd like to leave a comment below, then you can leave a comment. And as always, I invite people to like and subscribe to the channel, Never Odd or Even. And it's been great having you on today, Wendy. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks, Will.
That's right.